Toxic masculinity has many faces, but toxic masculinity in the role of fatherhood is especially egregious. And that's what we're going to be getting into today. Growing up, I always thought it was weird there to be double standards for boys and girls in respect to their accepted roles in society. I understand now that misogyny and patriarchy set these standards in motion, and that the male ego has done the rest. For as long as I can remember, I have been creeped out by the display of overly concerned fathers performing aggression to preserve their ego. For the life of me, I could never understand why it's acceptable or why nobody ever feels off-put by anyone who's so concerned with their daughter's sexuality. I've never understood why that is okay in our society, and why we just let it continue on like that's the normal thing to do. So we're going to delve into that in our first segment in Toxic Masculinity and Fatherhood. Our first segment is Hypocrisy, and our first character highlight is Kanye West. Feeling better than some head on a Sunday afternoon. Better than a chick that say yes too soon. Until you have a daughter, that's what I call karma. Then you pray to God she don't grow breasts too soon. Kanye West remarks on his 2005 song We Major. Sunday afternoon head is good so long as your daughter isn't the one giving it. Why are men so concerned with the sex lives of their daughters? Why are men so proud of their son's ability to acquire a mate? Or even proud of their daughters having sex with other girls? The egomania is irrational and harmful to our children, boys, girls, and non-binary kids alike. Niggas is savage, niggas is monsters, niggas is pimps, niggas is players, till niggas have daughters. Kanye West says on his 2018 song Violent Crimes. Here, Kanye depicts men as tireless agents of misery, specifically in relation to women. Another lyric from Violent Crimes. Father, forgive me. I'm scared of the karma. 'Cause now I see women as something to nurture, not something to conquer. With all the conviction of people that don't want to be treated the way they've treated others, Kanye feigns a repentant spirit, as if to say, in exchange for my daughter never being treated how I treated women, in hopes of her never being thought of the way I thought of women, in exchange for his penance will be stopping his misogynistic behaviors, never thinking that women are humans, and so are men, never considering if nurturing is something boys are missing, contributing to his boorish perception of them in adolescence and adulthood. Violent Crimes continues. I hope she's like Nicki. I'll make her a monster, not having menages. Nicki Minaj gives one of the most backhanded compliments ever to herself as she wrote this part in the Kanye song. As can be heard at the end of the track, Nicki abandons her sexuality, her persona, and what she has displayed, and from her lyrics to her image to her name, she abandoned it in service to toxic masculinity, boasting that her value is in being a monster like men, affirming aforementioned ideology that behaviors of men being selfish and causing harm without concern is acceptable, valued and preferred. By contrast, menages are not valued, as sex is for men to enjoy and women to deny. Violent Crimes continues. I'm just being silly. I answered the door like Will Smith and Martin. Nigga, do we have a problem? Matter of fact, Marlon. This is Meet the Fockers. I'll beat your ass, pray that I beat the charges. No, daddy don't play, not when it comes to his daughters. Don't do no yoga, don't do Pilates. Just play piano, stick to karate. I pray that your body is draped more like mine and not like your mommy's. Kanye West laments his wife's body. Yes, Mr. Workout Plan himself laments his wife's body and hopes that men like him would pass on his daughter in favor of other women that presumably look like his wife. Kanye's hypocrisy is on full display here, as the looks that brought about his daughter, this being that he adores so much, are the enemy. He would rather her do anything to be sexually undesirable to men. Kanye's misogynistic hypocrisy is the norm in our society. His example is prime for pointing out the toxic masculinity in fatherhood. Which brings us to our next person that we're going to be looking at in hypocrisy, which is T.I. Tip Clifford Harris of Bankhead. In November 2019, T.I. proudly announced on his Expeditiously podcast that he accompanies his daughter to annual gynecological exams to have her hymen checked, and therefore confirming that her virginity is intact. Beyond the physical, mental, and sexual abuse he put his daughter through in service to his self-important masculinity, it wasn't enough to impose your will over your child in your private life. T.I.'s masculinity is so important to him, and his daughter meant so little to him, that he let the world know that he abuses his daughter mentally, physically, and sexually. Yes, forcing your daughter to reveal sexual activity is sexual abuse. I think all of this surrounds a conversation that I was having in a very joking manner when I was asked, how do I deal with parenting in this day and age? T.I. said on an episode of Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith. T.I. has no shortage of songs describing in great detail that he likes having sex with women and what he likes for them to do. Limelight, Let's Get Away, The Greatest, to name a few. Did T.I. recognize the humanity in the women he rapped about in these songs? Does he believe that these women he rapped about deserve more freedom than his daughter? No. T.I. does not recognize the humanity of the women that he depicts in his songs. T.I. wanted pleasure from them sexually, and more importantly, he wanted to boast about it to serve his masculinity. T.I. obviously doesn't want his daughter to have sexual freedom, and he is definitely in favor of reducing her humanity to stroke his masculinity. I hope his daughter is able to recover and gets the care that she needs going forward. And this is why T.I. is our second character highlight and closes out our hypocrisy segment of toxic masculinity and fatherhood. Our next segment is sex work, and our character highlight is Chris Rock. Sometimes I'm walking down the street with my daughter, I'm talking to my daughter, I'm looking at her, I'm pushing her in a stroller, and sometimes I pick her up and I realize my only job in life is to keep her off the pole. Chris Rock, Never Scared, 2004. Chris Rock goes on to say, they don't grade fathers, but if your daughter's a stripper, you fucked up. I would like to take this time to say that sex work is work, period, exclamation point. Chris Rock's comments are inherently misogynistic, but moreover, they're classist. The implication here is not so much on the value of your daughter's virginity or sexual conservatism, but the fact that your daughter should never be put in a position to need necessities, that she should never have to consider low-class work. All work is steeped in class biases, and service workers are treated as the least of these, treatment that is intensified sevenfold for sex workers. The stigma and illegality come together to inspire a societal norm that admonishes sex work. Misogyny serves capitalism and elites. Chris looks at the situation and judges strippers as undesirable people that do something good humans wouldn't do. By proxy, if you produce a human that would do work good humans wouldn't do, then you are not good, and you failed at parenting. Under capitalism, providing insufficiently is a moral failing, and not a failure of the society, economy, but an individual one. A father's purpose is to nurture their children to the best of their abilities, not to choose their occupation, not to regulate their sexuality. Chris Rock may be signaling to the stigma of childhood trauma and mental illness and abuse often associated with Western society's view of exotic dancers and sex workers in general. It is reasonable for fathers as well as other parents and caregivers to be held to account for the well-being of their children they raise. Childhood trauma, mental illness, and abuse are factors in the lives of all workers, not just sex workers. Sex workers have been portrayed as these broken people prone to tragedy. It is reasonable that as a parent, you feel that you are a failure if your upbringing yielded a person that was broken. It is false to count all sex workers as broken persons, though, and dismiss their upbringing out of hand. Chris Rock's comments haven't been clarified, so he doesn't get that cover of just wanting to prevent his daughter's childhood trauma. The real reason sex work is so virulently opposed is because the workers are in control, and no capitalist wants that. This segment is called The Invisible Boys, and our character highlight is Lil Boosie. As any meninist will tell you, men and boys are victims of sexual abuse. It is less likely that meninists would tell you that our Western society default setting of toxic masculinity aids and excuses the abuses men and boys face. Lil Boosie, chief among those that criticized Dwayne Wade for supporting his daughter, saying Dwayne Wade went too far, and that's a child, bro. Boosie's only concern being the well-being of the child for reasons he never clarified specifically. Not too long ago, an Instagram video surfaced of Lil Boosie boasting about how he sexually assaulted his son and nephew, ages 12 and 14 at the time. Boosie, he had a grown woman who performed oral sex on him and his nephew, checked him out, being the quote that he used. Boosie expanded upon what he did, saying, "I did what I was supposed to." Lil Boosie's mentality was fostered by toxic masculinity and the culture of honor. The culture of honor is a mentality based in one's vitality is only as real as one's willingness and ability to defend it. You and your belongings must be defended at every turn, lest all you have is subject to annexation. Boosie is coming from this mentality. The two combine to reinforce each other. The expectations for our sons to be promiscuous and indiscriminate in their partners and standards breeds a culture that facilitates the abuse of boys and men, giving cover to pedophiles to continue to abuse, men forcing other men and boys into sex to prove their masculinity, women using society standards to abuse boys who would not be believed, accepted, or taken seriously if they came forward. The same can be said for men. Toxic masculinity tells these boys and men and dictates to men that all sex is good sex, and even if it was bad, or even if you didn't like it, or that you didn't want it, it's a tally for you, and it's a win for you. And that if you were raped, that it's a personal failing, that you were too weak to stop, and that therefore you deserve it, or you secretly enjoyed it and therefore you deserve it. Always absolving the rapist, always absolving the abuser, toxic masculinity is. That's why prison rape is a joke. That's why we all accept that in prison you'll be raped as a part of your punishment. Our justice system is rape. The toxicity seeps into all of our values in all our institutions. I've heard scores of horror stories of men being garnished into destitution for child support. In case after case of fathers being denied custody due to millennia of viewing women as primary caregivers. Men not being taken seriously as spousal abuse victims. These are the wages of the toxicity that we perpetuate. And it seeps into our relationships, down to our relationships between father and son. This meme is a microcosm of prevalent attitudes in our society. Depriving your son of love as a form of strengthening him in hopes of preparing him for a life is bullshit. Loving your sons is not proven to hinder sons, nor is it proof that abusing your sons would make them any stronger. This tweet shows a woman who can't understand a guy who loves her and doesn't accept her. She thinks that love is gay, and it's hard to understand what she would prospectively want from this relationship. This tweet is astonishing. First off, there ain't shit wrong with being gay. Beyond that, the fact that love being something that's off limits to men is absurd, and honestly, I can't understand what makes men unavailable to have it. Toxic masculinity makes these boys invisible, first to themselves and then to everyone else. Our final segment is aggression, and our character highlight is Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp's 2018 ad where he points a gun at Jake, a young man interested in one of his daughters. Pointing a gun at someone is the first principle you are taught in gun safety. Like, don't do it. Don't point a gun at someone. Anyone with any integrity would tell you never to point your gun at anything you do not wish to destroy. As we all know, Brian Kemp has no integrity and is willing to destroy anyone who has interest in his daughter, apparently. This is what I call the flip side of T.I.'s argument, or aka Daddy Longhand's argument, where you mark your daughter as territory that you are willing to kill for. You can see in this sentiment in online memes like this, threatening people to sacrifice your ego is unacceptable. Autonomy must be given back to women. They must decide their own boundaries. And I'll tell you, if anybody pulls a heater on my son, it's going to be pistol popping, shells dropping, nigga, you don't know me. In summation, the wages of all these toxic behaviors is a society that ignores the humanity of half the population. Sexuality is a part of being a human being. Sexual experiences are natural occurrences that humans partake in, man, woman, and non-gender conforming individuals alike. Women acting with their own sexual agency is the only moral way forward. To deny women their sexual agency is to deny them their humanity altogether.